Well, welcome everyone to Veganic Gardeners Question Time. I'm Giles from the World Healing Project, and wasn't that a beautiful introduction video there, and so important as well. Well, I tell you what, everyone, we've got a fantastic show today with some amazing panelists. But first of all, I want to tell you some news from the VON, the Vegan Organic Network's World Map, which is an amazing project. It's free to join, and the map was only recently launched, and it now has nearly 200 growers, farmers and gardeners, people growing on the windowsills. Might be people with a farm, it might be people like me. I've got my veganic garden here in sunny Suffolk, and people on the map can now host events. The first VON map event will be in Manchester City Centre in Manchester. How about that? Titled VON Open Gardens at Cherry's Nature Patch. Now, you could have a VON map event at your place. So for more information, do go to the Vegan Organic Network's website. Well, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ever wanted to know how to grow organically using only plant-based fertilizers? Well, we are here to answer all of your questions. And it's now time to introduce today's panel. First of all, we have Rakesh Rootsman Rak. Rakesh is a permaculture expert, an accomplished permaculture expert, designer, teacher, and a forest garden specialist. Also a yoga instructor, homeopath, and reggae DJ. Well, Rakesh, it's wonderful to have you along to the show there. Just unmute yourself there. Wonderful. Rakesh, how you doing?
Great. Yeah. I kind of sometimes describe myself actually as a reggae DJ who does all this other stuff part-time, all the teaching and the food growing, and but it's all my passion. I love it. I mean, this is my ikigai. I love doing this. I've literally just come back from the Netherlands, teaching at a school, teaching the kids and the parents and the teachers, and helping them to design their little vegan permaculture school. Off to Sweden tomorrow. Well, I start tomorrow. I'll be teaching from the weekend. Another vegan permaculture course, and a whole bunch of stuff. I've just lined up another course in Liverpool, another vegan permaculture course. I've got courses in France as well, Denmark, all over. Yeah, so life's great. I'm enjoying it. It's good fun.
Wonderful, man. Well, if you're a reggae DJ and everything else is following from that, then life is going to be good. Yoga teacher, homeopath, permaculture expert. Rakesh, it is wonderful to have you as part of the Vegan Organic Network's Veganic Gardeners Question Time. We're looking forward to you sharing your wisdom through the show, my friend. Next up, we have Maureen Robertson, a medical herbalist. Now, Maureen has over 25 years' experience working with herbs and sharing the green knowledge. She co-founded the Scottish School of Herbal Medicine in 1992, and she now runs courses at the Herbal Path in Portugal. Maureen, how are you?
I'm good, Giles. Thank you. We're about to hit a heat wave here. It's going to be 33 degrees tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
How are you getting on in sunny Portugal?
Well, you need to have the shade when it's like this. And the irrigation is crucial because all the natural, endemic plants have already all died back. This is like the winter for the plants. It's so hot they all recede back, and everything's brown, brown earth, brown grass. And then we have a second spring again in September, October when the rains come back. So we won't have any rain now until the end of September.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how we can grow veganically all over the world, and we just have to have the knowledge and the know-how and tools and techniques, but we can do it. And that's a wonderful thing that our panel prove. So thanks for being here, Maureen. We look forward to you sharing your wisdom throughout the session. And last but certainly not least, friend of the show, Piers Warren, conservationist, author, and keen grower of organic fruit and vegetables. He's the founder of Wildeye, the International School of Wildlife Filmmaking, the author of several books and co-author of The Vegan Cook and Gardener. Piers, lovely backdrop you've got there, my friend. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. And of course, it's here in the south of England. I'm not far from Brighton. We've had a very wet spring. It feels colder than it should be, and but like many other gardeners in certainly in the UK and in the south of the UK, the result of this wet spring is an invasion of slugs and snails, which everybody's talking about at the moment. So that's been one of the problems I've faced this year. But the greenhouse is bulging with seed trays, and I'm gradually planting stuff out. So it's all happening.
Yeah, what a wonderful time of year it is. I'm sure we've got some questions. We seem to have questions about slugs every month nowadays, but it is an exciting thing. So, panel, here we go. And audience out there, please do interact with the show. If you're following us live, you can send in your comments and, of course, questions for the next session. Well, here we go. Maestro, do you have the first question, please? It's Nadia. It's Nadia from Brighton. I have a smallish back garden, currently out with borders and shrubs, flowering perennials, which I'd like to keep. I'd like to start growing some food too. So can the panel suggest a few attractive edibles that I can grow among the current plants? Great question, Nadia. I'm sure we've got some advice. So, panel, who'd like to start us off with this one? Piers, over to you.
The first thing that struck me is that because Nadia described her garden as smallish, you might be tempted to grow lots of small things in it. But actually, sometimes if you grow something large in a small space, it can magically make the space seem larger. So my first suggestion is globe artichokes, which have really nice kind of architectural, stunning leaves and then produce these buds, which are edible. And I always like to leave a few as well to flower into these huge bright blue flowers, which the bees and other insects really love. So that's one possibility. Two other quick ones. One is the Cavolo Nero kale, which produces these long kind of bluey green leaves, which can look really attractive amongst other plants and flowers. And of course, don't forget things like nasturtiums, where you can eat the flowers and the leaves, and they look attractive anyway. So there's three things to start with.
Wonderful, thank you, Piers. Panelists, anyone else want to add anything? Rakesh.
Yeah, I can add some. So yeah, nasturtium would have been my first one because that is so colourful and so delicious in every part of it, whether it's the leaves, the seed pod, the flower. You know, it's fantastic. But other things, another type of kale that I use a lot is Taunton Dean kale because it lasts for so long. I think I've been growing it for almost 50 years, and it lasts for about 8 years. And you just take a cutting, put it, hardwood cutting, stick it in the ground, come back, start eating. And even in the winter, you've still got fresh new leaves. The other things would be things like mustards and radish, and in particular with radish, because my style of gardening is more really, really, really low maintenance. I was once described as the most productive lazy hippie someone's ever met, because I spend a lot of time working very hard to be lazy. And so my gardens are really self-maintaining. And so things like radish and mustard, where you can plant it, overplant it, just keep picking your young leaves, and then allow half of them to go get bigger, and half of those you allow to go to flower or go to seed pod and flower, and all the time you can be eating so many different parts of it. So the leaves, the flowers, the seed pods. Seed pods are actually probably the best part. And so you've got, and the ones that you kept cutting back again and again and again and again, next spring, they'll come straight back up again. So straight away, whenever the sun starts shining, February, March, you've got fresh greens again. So it's a really nice long harvest you get from them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rakesh. Nadia, do you, for Nadia, Maureen, do you have anything? One plant, maybe? Quick one?
I think the only thing I would add is don't forget all the aromatic culinary herbs that you can make amazing salads from, like lemon balm, which is perennial that will keep coming back. parsley is a biannual, so it keeps going for 2 seasons. It flowers in the second season, so you can be harvesting from that for a long time. And then there's the annuals like sweet basil, holy basil even, and calendula and borage, and these are wonderful in salads. You know, I if I've got enough of the aromatic herbs, I don't even bother with lettuce or anything. I just make it all from the leaves, and oregano and marjoram, things like that, dill. They grow very quickly and easily. That's it.
Wonderful. Well, I'd just like to say, Nadia, just get some of those beauties in. Maestro, let's move on. We've got so many questions today. I think record. Oh, here we go. I don't know. We've got a name on this, but anonymous. What are some of the most common wild edible plants and mushrooms that can be foraged in May? We're just at the end of May now, aren't we? And going into June. So foraging panel, some simple ones. Who'd like to go first? Maureen, how about you?
Well, I kind of can't really remember I've been in Portugal for 10 years, so I can't really remember the exact stuff that's going on.
What do you have there, though? I'd just like to know, what can you forage there?
We have lots of legumes, so many different species that you can harvest the leaves and have like steamed veg or salad. They're sort of starting to finish up now here because there's no rain. Unless something's irrigated at this time of year, it's already kind of shriveled.
Yeah.
My globe artichokes are coming into flower. Well, buds, ready to eat before they go into full flower. I've got peas and radish. Radish is almost finished. Yeah, I've got peas and beans. But you see, everything's a bit earlier here.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. It's the wonderful world. Yeah. So, Rakesh, what are you foraging this time of year? What are you going for?
So what I've already found this year. So burdock is something that I can dig up most times of the year. And that's still, you know, it's right at this time where some are still hasn't gone into the second year and hasn't started to actually grow up. So, you know, to go to flower. So burdock is great. Lime leaves like crazy. Who needs to buy salad when you've got, you know, Tilia cordata everywhere? Hawthorn, you know, you can be eating the flower buds as well as the leaves, and especially when they're young. Things like chickweed is, you know, stellaria is everywhere right now. Mallow, the things like Alexanders, you know, many of the brassicas will have gone to flower, so you can be eating the flowers or the seed pods. Things like shepherd's purse. I mean, wow, there's so much. Oxeye daisies and, you know, garlic mustards, ground elder like crazy, horseradish. You know, I don't know why people don't eat the leaves of horseradish. It's really delicious. You know, I see more or less every allotment I go to, people always want to give me horseradish because they don't know what to do with it. Wow, just eat it. Rosebay, willow, herb. I mean, there's so much, you know, three-cornered leeks. You might still find some of those before it gets too hot. All the different, you know, nettles themselves, as well as all the dead nettles, you know, wild carrots. I mean, wow, this time of year is fantastic. There's so much. And if you've got things like, you know, and that's what you're going to find wild anyway here in England. If you've got a garden which has things like Szechuan pepper or goji berries, again, the leaves of those are really edible. I mean, wow, where to begin? There's so much. Who needs to go to a shop?
I think when you've got that little bit of knowledge, and it is a wonderful, empowering thing when you do have that knowledge. I remember spending time with Professor Gordon Hillman, who did the Wild Food series with Ray Mears, and you'd go for a walk with him, and he'd just go, "You can eat that, you can eat that, you can eat that." You know, oh, God bless you, Gordon. Piers, anything quickly you want to add to that?
Well, Rakesh mentioned nettles, and of course, stinging nettles can be made into so many different things. And just to say, this is the time of year to pick, excuse me, pick the young shoots. If you leave it too long, they get more fibrous and bitter, and so now's the time to do it. So if you're making lots of nettle soup and stuff like that, of course, you can then freeze that for later in the year.
Wonderful. So get going, Anonymous. Okay, Maestro, we're going to move on, please. Oh, here we go. We've got What are the panel's opinions on things other gardeners have left in the land? We may inherit eggshells in the beds that won't break apart for ages. For that matter, how long can animal dung? Well, we've got a quick question in here. I mean, what are you going to do if someone's left eggshells? My personal opinion is, well, just if it's there, it's there. I mean, seems to be a lot of effort. I don't know what anyone else thinks of that panel. If someone's left some dung, are we really going to dig it out?
At the end of the day, they're minerals, and they will eventually over long term break down. They're not particularly harmful. If it was plastics and metals, and that's a different story. If it was chemicals, different story. But yeah, a bit of cow dung, and yeah, I've got no problem with that.
We've not put it there. We'll move on, panel. We'll move on. But thank you for that question, viewer, who just sent that in. So Maestro, please, next one. Oh, here we go. It's John in Manchester. Now, this is something I really want to know about, panel. We have 2 raised beds that are mainly in the shade of trees. What can we grow in them? John's not got the sun in his raised beds. What could we do, panel? Who wants to go first here? Okay, Maureen. John's shady.
I think you could put comfrey in there, because comfrey likes to be in the cool shaded area. And any of the cool moistening herbs like sweet violet and mallows. So these don't mind it in the shade. They're not sun-loving, hot, fiery solar herbs. Ones that you wouldn't want to have in the shade that don't do so well would be like marigold and chamomile, all the ones that follow the sun. So, and St. John's wort, this sort of thing. And lettuce would like to be in the shade as well. All these cooling, moistening plants. That's it. I'll hand over to the others.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. Great starter. Okay, Piers, over to you. John's a bit shady.
Well, yeah, Maureen mentioned lettuce. And of course, a lot of these leafy salads can handle some shade. So that also includes things like spinach and chard, kale even, and beetroot can handle it as well. So there's quite a lot of things like that. And then there's fruit bushes as well can handle some shade. So blackcurrants and things like that.
Great answers. Rakesh, anything else you want to just...
Yeah, because most of my food growing is perennial or self-seeding, I go for more things like, exactly as Piers was saying, a lot of the currant bushes, they prefer semi-shade as opposed to deep shade, but most of them will really thrive in that. Things like Solomon seals and Gualtheria chalons are one of my favorites. There's a really lovely creeping raspberry that does really well, or a Nepalese raspberry. Maybe slightly unusual is a plant called Udo, which is really fascinating. And then things like hog peanuts, which are a climber. One thing I would say here in the UK, though, the things like symphytum, they do actually need sun. They shy away from shade here. Maybe in Portugal, where you've got a bit too much, maybe that's why they're preferring to hide away. But here, they actually prefer to be in full sun. Yeah, I mean, again, you'd be surprised how many things will actually grow really well in the shade.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the forest gardens I've got here in East London, it's more or less all in the shade, and so more or less everything we've got, is. And actually, if you want to talk about more like bushes and shrubs and things, then one of my favorites is wax myrtle, which not only grows in deep shade, it's a perennial. You can use the leaf as it's similar to like a bay leaf. You just put it in your pot and it just imparts amazing flavor. It has wax all over the leaf as well as the berry, which you can extract and turn into the most incredibly beautifully scented wax candles. As I say, it has a berry that you can eat, and as if that's not good enough, it fixes nitrogen, which for any self-maintaining, low-maintenance food growing system is absolutely essential. So it's an incredible one to learn about. In fact,
Wonderful.
I believe the Native American Indians, the first plant that they would go to when they were ill was this plant. So it's hugely medicinal as well. Fantastic.
Top 24 carat advice panel. Loving it. John, you've got some ideas. Maestro, moving on, please. Is this John? Is this you again? With 2 compost bins. With compost that's between 1 and 2 years old. Not sure what to do with it, as we only have 2 raised beds. Are they in the shade, John? Can you advise? What's he going to do with it? I mean, just chuck it on the beds.
Yeah.
I mean, have we got
Give it
anything
away.
else? Have we got anything else to tell John? Just put it on your beds. I mean,
Yeah, put it on the beds.
just put it on the beds.
Yeah, add it anywhere as a mulch. So he mentions 2 raised beds, but you know, he may have other flower beds and things around, so it can be added to that as a mulch as well.
Give it to your neighbours, give it to your friends.
Yeah,
give it away. It's valuable stuff.
I've been working over at my mum and dad's today. God bless them. And there's this wonderful advice. You see this here, if you can watch this on YouTube. It's Dave Darlington's book here, Feeding the World. And Dave talks about this idea of clipping the hedges, the last sort of, I don't know, maybe foot or so, you know, of the hedge cuttings. I've got so much hedge cuttings. I've just helped me mum and dad, give it that summer cut, you know, tidy the hedges. And I'm going to dump that in the corner of my garden, and I'm just going to leave it. And I might occasionally tinkle on it, and I might chuck some soil on it and other stuff on it. And one day I'll have gold. I will have green gold. So compost, compost, compost. Put it on your beds. Maestro, please. I think we've got... Oh, here we go. It's Olga. Olga from Reading. Lovely to hear from you. I really would like someone to tell me how they tackle the aphid issue. My crops are getting destroyed by black and white fly. Help! What are we going to do, panel? What are we going to do for our aphids? Veganically, of course. Maureen, over to you first.
I make up a preparation of capsicum, of cayenne powder, and I put it in one of these pump dispensers and I spray it on the plants, and they really don't like that. The aphids really don't like that.
I don't like it up them. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Rakesh, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I'm not really so much into disturbing animals and insects. You know, they're part of the ecosystem. As we know, 500,000 species of animals, insects, plants are going to go extinct in the next 50 years because of our human, or they're saying will go extinct in the next 50 years because of our human interactions, because of us trying to control our environment. And for me, this is even more significant than climate change. So for me, an excess of aphids is not the problem. The problem is there isn't enough predators, and so you don't have a balanced ecosystem. So because of people's intention to keep animals away, keep different animals and insects out of our ecosystems, it becomes imbalanced, and that's why you get a pest. So, you know, obvious way to balance that is ladybird larvae. The ladybird larvae eats infinitely more aphids than ladybirds themselves. So yes, to cultivate environments, cultivate habitat to allow all these different animals and insects to be part of the ecosystem, and then you'll have some aphids, but not enough to cause you problems.
Wonderful. Okay, good approach there. Piers, aphids, what are you going to do?
Well, as Rakesh says, if you don't have any aphids, then you won't have any predators that will tackle the aphids. So I don't despair when I see aphids appear on a plant. And what I usually do each year is I also grow a lot of things like nasturtiums, which aphids also like. So if the aphids are on the nasturtiums and they're attracting the predators, then these predators will also eat the aphids off other plants that I'd rather they weren't attacking.
Absolutely. Very, very clever. Divert them. Divert the little devils to something else. But if you need to, Olga, you know, you might try and make a spray. It's an option. There's different ways to tackle things that we can do veganically. So let's go to this next question. This is a very philosophical question here. Thanks, Basil. How do you envisage a world where most farmers have adopted vegan organic growing techniques? So that's quite a deep one. Maybe we can all have a little go on this. I'm not quite sure, Basil, about the grammar of your question there. It's quite deep. How do you envisage a world? How do you do it? I mean, I don't know. Anyone want to kick us off here with Basil?
I do a lot of...
Yes, you go first. Let's just give Basil something.
Well, yes, the way I envisage it is, I suppose a simple way of saying it would be if the world was covered with allotments where families or communities are growing their own food on small parcels of land. So the disadvantage of this is that it takes a lot more manpower than the current industrial way of producing food, but it's a lot more efficient in terms of the amount of food or the amount of calories per acre. And it can all be done veganically, using the techniques that we all talk about. And we've got plenty enough land worldwide to do this, but people have to accept that they're going to have to get their spades out and join in, because it'll take a lot of people to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think who actually owns the land as well, you know, in America now, Bill Gates, I don't even say our friend Bill Gates, but he's the largest owner of farmland in America. So there we go. Rakesh, how do we envisage it?
I don't know about how we envisage it, but how I envisage it is slightly differently, because I still see a lot of conventional organic growing as still being problematic in terms of the amount of resources, the amount of time, the amount of energy put in. I think the Post Carbon Institute released a figure that said for every joule of energy that for every 8 joules of energy you put into organic food growing, you get 1 joule of energy back in terms of food. Now that's not even sustainable, let alone regenerative. So I do a lot of work around the world, inviting people to imagine this most beautiful utopian dream. You know, imagine a world in 20, 30 years time where everything is really beautiful, everyone lives in harmony with each other, their surroundings, and all the work that they've been trying to do, that they're campaigning for, is done. And describe this world. And invariably everyone describes, as soon as they walk out their back door, the first thing they see are trees full of fruits. Then they see, you know, basically what they're describing is a forest garden, you know, a garden which is full of food everywhere and people intermingled, children playing in between them. And so there's no real distinguishing, you know, there's no delimiting line between what is the food growing area and living space. It just is a huge Garden of Eden. And for me, this is a forest garden. So with little clearings of maybe organic food growing in between somewhere, perhaps.
Yeah,
lovely.
Yep, beautiful. Maureen, how are you envisaging it? Or are you envisaging it?
I love those answers. And the only thing that I would add is that, you know, maybe if we were in these forest gardens, that we would have much more of an understanding of the way that nature moves through the year, and the seasons. And like Piers says, then you have these times of activity where lots of people have to roll their sleeves up and get stuck in. But it means that there's a lot of sharing. You know, we all need to help each other, and people might be seed sharing in springtime, and then harvest sharing at harvest time. And I think that this focus on sowing and harvesting with the seasons would bring people back into the rhythm of nature that is so far removed from city living and just, you know, buying your food in a supermarket and not having a connection with the land of where or how it's been grown. So I think it could bring in these social well, they're like ceremonies in a way, aren't they? Sowing ceremonies, harvest ceremonies, like bringing in this idea of social contact, and all the generations as well, because everybody, all the kids are needed to harvest the peas and eat as many as they like, and strawberries and stuff. Getting people in to reap the harvest at the harvest time and celebrate. And I hope we will have much more celebration in our lives, because we're all giving thanks for what nature is providing, because we're involved in it.
Beautiful answers, panel. I'd just like to say that the Von map is a stepping stone towards a world where there is veganic organic growing. So we need to encourage everyone to get their plots, even if they just have a windowsill, a veganic windowsill. We need to show people that these projects exist. We need to show people how to do it and celebrate, and let's bring back the garden of vegan. Come on, we can do it. Okay, Maestro, moving on. Oh, here we go. Mark, what are you got to say? I have 10 new big planters. What's the best material to fill the bottoms of them for drainage? Gravel would be too heavy. Someone suggested styrofoam peanuts. It sounded like a terrible idea. Okay, go very quickly for Mark. He's getting in a question here. It's not quite how it works, Mark, but we'll give you this one. Anyone? How are we going to fill it? What are we going to fill our
You can. Well, one of the strategies I use is at the bottom. I actually create it to be actually a water container with things like perlite or these clay balls. These clay balls which are fired with plenty of holes in it, so they're very, very porous. And I don't know what they're actually called. And I kind of have a really nice deep layer of that, then a gap, and then I put some kind of false floor on there. I then put some kind of cloth, like some kind of cloth, jute or something like that, that's really hard wearing, that I put on top of that, and then down the side so that it's in the water, and then I put the soil on top of that. So effectively that wicks up the water. And so so it wicks it up, which means that you only need to water it, 2-3 times a month or something. And yeah, you really don't need to worry so much, because the plants will take whatever water they need. So when it gets dry, they suck it up.
Interesting thoughts. Have we got any other quick thoughts for Mark? My thing is, as long as it's not chemical or animal or anything, I just use what you've got. He's just got 10 raised beds. I mean, it can cost money to fill these things. Just use what you've got. Anything to add, Piers or Maureen, to that?
Yeah, I think any cut stems that you've been pruning, like Giles, you pruning in your mum and dad, any of them are good for creating that kind of layer and a little bit of space at the bottom. Yeah,
if you've got 10 beds, you've just got to fill them somehow, haven't you? Piers, anything?
Actually, I was going to say the same thing. If you've been doing some tree pruning, branches, small logs, things like that, right at the very bottom can help with drainage.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, but thanks, Mark. Thanks for sending that question in. Of course, we will do our best to answer them. But you can send your questions in for the next show to the Maestro, to the website, through the website. And anyway, let's move on, because we've got so many questions. Okay, we're going to go short answers here, panel. I'd like to try growing sweet potatoes in pots in my conservatory. Simon in Pembrokeshire. I've never tried this before, but I gather you don't just plant the tubers like you do with regular potatoes. Please can the team tell me how to get started? Any tips? Simon wants to grow some sweet potatoes. Okay. Who wants to go for this? Okay. Well, Rakesh, you were first. You've got a fast buzzer.
I'd say you're too late to start. If you really want to get sweet potato growing, you should have started in maybe even January, February inside, just getting it rooted, because it takes a while for the slips to start growing. But then every time a slip comes up, you can literally pick it off, put it in water or put it in soil, let it regrow, and you've got another plant. So from each tuber, you can get 20, 30 plants quite easily. But really you want those slips to have been started already. And don't forget, even if you do start it late, what you can be doing is eating the leaves rather than expecting to have so many sweet potatoes at the end of it, because the leaves are really, they're not the same family as potato. It's a completely different family, and so the sweet potato leaves are edible. Ordinary potato leaves are not edible, so please don't try eating normal potato leaves.
So Maureen, did you just want to add something there for Simon?
Yeah, if you've got your plant, your lead plant that you're going to be taking the slips from, then you find the lead stem and you cut that back, and you can even cut that lead stem into 3 or 4 different new cuttings. And so then when you're putting them in the soil to get to root, you need to make sure you've got them the right way up. If you cut the lead stem into multiples, that's the only thing. So you find your lead stem, and then you just keep taking cuttings from that.
It's a magical plant, one that I haven't actually experimented with myself. So here we go. Maestro, please. I love this question. Dave in Canterbury. Does no dig mean that I shouldn't turn my soil? Now, I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say no dig means no dig. I mean, are we kind of just, don't turn it? I mean, unless you need to. Rakesh.
Yeah, exactly. As you just said at the last second there, unless you need to. So perhaps at the very, very, very beginning, to kickstart and create an environment, maybe that's the only time that for me would be permissible. If you want to, for example, be digging in lots of organic matter, or in my case, a lot of biochar into the soil. So, but apart from that, yeah, no dig means no dig.
But sometimes you do want to integrate more fertile material into your soil, and so what I sometimes do is I get a fork and I just put the fork straight into the ground, and then move maybe an inch and do it again, and then move an inch, do it again, and then I'll sprinkle all my any fresh compost or whatever, so that it's kind of got an access point to further down into the bed. So it's when you're wanting to add more fertility, that's a way of doing it. It's not strictly digging. You're just kind of putting the fork in and aerating and trying to avoid spearing earthworms, of course, as well. But that way you can kind of open up the bed a little bit to receive any additional food through the compost on the surface.
Piers, what's your thoughts on no dig?
Well, I'm a no-dig gardener, and if you take a cross-section of some established soil that hasn't been dug for a while, then throughout all the layers of the soil, as you get deeper, you get different organisms who choose the depth where they want to live and is best for them. So if you turn this over by digging it, then you're completely disrupting all these millions of organisms that live in the soil and make it a healthy living ecosystem, which is why when fields are ploughed every year or even several times a year, it's really disruptive to these ecosystems, and the soil loses its health. So no dig, put your spade away.
For me as well, I think it's one of the things that I'm very much into is the teachings of Victor Schauberger, where you're not using iron tools, you're not using steel tools, because it's dissipating this subtle energy charge of the earth. So I use copper tools, and it's such a beautiful way to work. It's a softer way to work. And for me, when I've got in tune with the soil, if I am having to, I don't know, I'm digging a hole for my apple tree, I've got to dig, but I'm doing it with my copper tools, and it just seems right. It almost seems like I'm in the Lord of the Rings. We had a quick question come up there, panel. Are you growing any hemp? Now, hemp was the most farmed crop, cannabis sativa, the most farmed crop in the world for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. And if we wanted environmental solutions, I would certainly say it was something that we should be seeking, and incredibly still not on the discussion table at COP. What a nut job. Panel, any views on hemp and growing hemp, cannabis sativa?
Just that I totally agree. It should be brought back because it's just so versatile and so quick growing, and it's just a no-brainer that it should be grown again in the way it was before.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We need to. It's one of this. Certainly in the temperate world, the most useful plant. I was going to say my T-shirt's made of it, but I don't think this one quite is. But there we go. But so much can be made from it. You know, Henry Ford, good old Henry Ford. He made a car. The panels were made out of a hemp, and he fueled it with hemp ethanol back in the 20s. You know. And now what are we doing? We're thinking that electric cars are the solution. Oh, well, don't get me started. Panel, I think we're at the end. And if you didn't get your question answered, when we've got some wonderful ones, we will push them to the next one. Just to wrap up, panel, can we just have some final thoughts? Any messages you'd like to share? Piers, let's go with you first.
Just remember that it's not too late to sow seeds. You know, we're still in May, very nearly June. But there's a lot of seeds you can still get going, like all of the salads and the quick growing things like that. So keep successional sowing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Piers. Rakesh, final thoughts from you, my friend?
Sure. What I teach and what I do is, as I say, really low maintenance food growing, which is biodiverse rich. So what I mean by that is I create environments where animals and insects come of their free will and can leave of their free will. So I create habitat that allows them to really thrive. And so if they enjoy being there, they stay. And this for me is really, really essential for us to really move on. If we really want to live in a veganic way, in a really loving, caring way, then we really need to allow all animals and insects to be part of our ecosystem, not pick and choose whether slugs and mosquitoes and mice and, you know, cows and dogs and what have you, what does live and what doesn't live, what can thrive, what can't live. We really need to care for all of them. So creating these kind of environments where everyone can thrive and where we find this beautiful ecosystem, this is my dream. So I just really encourage you to really go and explore how to make that happen and make this a really most beautiful, wonderful world that we can all live and thrive in.
Beautiful words. And Maureen, finally over to you. Final thoughts.
Yeah, just to not be afraid to get out there in your garden, and if you inherited or bought a property that's just got a lawn, you know, don't be afraid to get stuck in and do something with bright coloured flowers and bright, beautiful nasturtiums and herbs, which are easy to grow, especially perennials. And even if you have just a window box, just fill it with beautiful aromatic herbs that you can put in your cooking, and just spend time outside in nature and balance your energy through nature. And the thrill of eating something that you've grown yourself is just magnificent. So have a go, even if it's just a few basil leaves that you've grown on your windowsill and you've put them on your spaghetti or whatever. Have a go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, panel. It's been a wonderful show, and thank you to everyone that asked the questions and that have tuned in. I would encourage you all to go to veganorganic.net. It's the website of the Vegan Organic Network. It's a beautiful website. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Maestro. Join the Von Map. Become a member of the Vegan Organic Network. And my final thoughts are this. Vegan Organic can heal the planet. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy.